Hey everyone, it's Sam from Bio Cosplay. Today I'm going to show you how to assemble an armorer helmet from the Mandalorian using my pattern. I'll put a link to the pattern down below to my Etsy if you want to pick it up. Okay, so once you download the pattern, you want to open it in Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Acrobat Pro DC, some sort of Adobe Acrobat. You'll sort it out. Then you go to print, so just set it to poster, and then it'll print the whole thing. It should be 12 pages. All my tests at home were 12 pages. The printer at work wanted to print it in 15 pages though, and it would put like a giant border around the edge. And I don't know why. It might just be the work printer settings, but I'm not sure. So hopefully it does the 12 pages for you, and it'll be great. Once it's printed out, you'll have this stack of papers. So to assemble it, you can see there's an edge here that's blank. You want to cut off the edge of one sheet and leave it on the next sheet so you have room to tape it over top. Let's zoom in on this real quick. Alright, we got a nice zoom on there. That's a nice zoom. And now, you can either cut it with scissors or use your ruler and X-Acto. If you do the X-Acto and the ruler, you can just kind of get it all at once. You just got to be careful your ruler doesn't waggle about. Then you just line up the lines. It doesn't have like hash marks specifically where to line it up, but there's a goblin in the background, so that'll help you line it up if you're slightly confused about how the line should look. So do a bunch of taping. On the second row, you'll have to trim off the tops and the sides. So slightly more trimming. Alright, once you get it all taped together, it's going to look like this. I didn't tape it all together just now. I did it yesterday. We're doing a swap out. It's like a cooking show. We don't have time to tape things on camera. I'm not here for it. Then you cut all that out. Then you trace it onto your foam. Another swap out. I know, you were deceived. It's fine. Then you cut it out. No more swap outs. That's all I got. I don't have enough foam for a foam swap out. But what if I did? That would be pretty good. If this was just like 10 minutes of streaming and I just was like, there it is. There it's cut out. Now it's assembled. Alright, we're done here. I think once everything's on the foam, it's a little unwieldy, so I like to just cut it off in big old chunks. It wastes a little bit of foam. Like this little bit of foam is going to be wasted. But it's fine. Too unwieldy for the table to try to precisely cut out all these things at once. Alright, so we've got inward bevels and outward bevels. On the pattern, I tried to do a little diagram to explain that. There's not really up there at the top. But that's a 2D representation of cutting out a 3D object, which might be confusing. So I'll show you on a test piece here. So if this is the edge of the pattern, an inward bevel would be the knife tilted in towards the rest of that section of the pattern. Piece of glue on my box cutter. Get out of there, glue. Get out of there. Alright, so it's tilted in towards the rest of that part of the pattern. Like this. Sometimes it's easier to use the ruler and butt it up against the ruler and cut it that way. An outward bevel is the opposite. So if that's your line, it's angled away from that part of the pattern. I find it difficult to try to use a ruler to cut the outward bevel because then you got the ruler in the way when you're trying to hold the foam, and it seems dangerous. I don't do it. The first bevel cut, the cheek. So this one on the cheek is an inward bevel. Just gonna cut this bevel. We'll say it's roughly 45 degrees. For the eye, I like to use an X-Acto knife because it's got these tiny corners. So on this part of the cheek, this small edge here has an outward bevel. And then the other edges are just flat. Is this edge flat? Is this one just flat? Is there a bevel here? Oh no. Oh no. No, it's flat. It's fine. Wait. No, it's not. Hold up. Hold on. Hold up. cheeks. I want an outward bevel like this. What does that look like? That. And again on the round part of the cheek, I want an inward bevel. I've got most of the important pieces cut out, so now I'm going to start gluing some of them, and then I'll cut the rest out while the glue's drying on these. First I'm going to heat form these oblong looking head pieces so it's easier to glue this little wedge together, and so it's got the round dome shape for the head. Okay. Then I'm going to glue together all these pieces that go on the side of the head. I'm going to do a second coat on these two, just so I know they don't pull apart. Just going to glue this top edge down to where the faceplate attaches to. We're not going to put the cheek on yet. The cheek goes on last because there's a 2mm detail piece that goes over top of the face because there's two little inset cheeky bits here and like a detail up here. You'll see, trust me. We're putting the face on last, or the cheeks on last. Oh. Almost glued things together prematurely. A premature glue. This is dry enough now, so I'm going to glue it together. I like to make sure this top edge that you can see is flush, because the back, it doesn't really matter if it's not lined up nice. I like to make sure this edge is touching nice and flush, sometimes angling it upwards like this. And some of the registration marks you have to push or pull the foam a little to get it to line up. Then once it's all lined up, you got this gap on the back. You just good to go. That's pretty dry. These don't have registration marks. You just mush it together till you get to the end and try to line the corners up. And with the rounded sections like this, I like to push it inside out a bit to make sure it sticks pretty good. Next, I'm going to glue these center strips to these round pieces. Got a little sloppy with the glue, so I'm using this other piece to kind of scrape some of it off. Alright, while those dry, I'm going to go back to cutting stuff out. So the little cheek section, again, has an outward bevel on it. And the small edge of this secondary cheek piece, outward bevel. Beveled. And I don't remember again if this is supposed to be beveled or not, this bottom edge. I can't tell what I did on the first helmet, so we're just gonna wait. Figure that out later. These long strips, they say they have an outward bevel, so we're gonna cut them like that. They go along the bottom of the helmet to give it that little flare out. Here we go. There's the sharpness. This little section that goes under the cheek, it also has an outward bevel on this front edge and along the top. Alright, this should be ready to glue. This one's going to require a little bit of force to get some of these registration marks to line up. A little bit of stretching or pulling, but foam is pretty forgiving. These two pieces are probably the most complicated with the bevels. Alright, so the top edge has an outward bevel. This edge without the pointy part, the straight edge, has an outward bevel. The bottom part is just flat. And then all along the section with the pointy part, it's an inward bevel. Alright, so this round edge at the top, outward bevel. Flat edge, outward bevel. The bottom's flat. And then this edge with the little triangle sticking out, that's all an inward bevel. On the pattern, everything should be labeled with what thickness it is. These pieces are 2 millimeter. So there are a couple options with assembling the helmet once we get to this part. You can either glue this face section together here in the middle, and then glue this whole dome together on top, and then try to glue this bowl to all this. I don't like to do that because then I feel like I don't have anything to grab onto when I have a big old giant bowl and I'm like, how do I get it on there? My hands. So I like to just assemble, the bowl on one half. You get half a bowl, like this, and then just glue it all down the center, and then I'll put the detail pieces on. This is ready to glue. Let's get a close-up on that glue. Oh, there we go. There it is. This is definitely going to need a little bit of stretching to hit the registration marks. There we go. And I like to fold it towards the seam and then flip it inside out. Make sure everything's stuck on there. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the bottom too. This one's going to need a little bit of stretching too. I'm going to start at the back with this strip. Just line it up on the edge. And do my best to hit all these registration marks. Nailed it. Look at that. Now for some of these beveled edges on the inside, it's going to be a little overhang. And you can just trim that off. Get on this one, I'm going to start on the back to make sure when we glue it here in a second it's lined up. Actually, there's a little bit of a step here where the nose attaches to the forehead. I'm going to Dremel that so it's a little bit more flush. I should have done it on the other side. But I'll go back and do it after that glue's dry. That's better. I'll do this back section where it connects at this seam as well. It just makes that step a little bit more flush. All right, we're going to glue the helmet together. I like to start at the nose of the helmet. Just glue into the nose. And we're going out to this seam. You can use the seam as sort of a registration mark. The seam should touch. And then the registration marks begin. when I'm gluing, it's kind of angled like this, because I want to make sure this outer edge is flush. I don't really care what's going on the inside edge because no one sees that. And then at the end here, this is making a little diamond already, so I'm just going to stick the end together there. And then glue all this middle section together, because otherwise the ends are going to flop around and try to glue themselves anyway. There. Try to mash everything, make sure it's stuck. Check the inside seams and mush any little gaps. You can be pretty forceful with it. Alright, so the base of the helmet's stuck together. It's getting there. It still looks a little bit misshapen, but some heat forming, and then of course the visor keeps these from looping around. Now I'm going to glue this section on. And this one adds these little cutout sections that's on the helmet. And two adds this little border right along the seam. So to line this up, it's just lined up right along the seam line. And it helps hide the seam too. On the inside edge here of the face, this is all going to be rounded over, so that edge is not super important that it gets lined up and looks great. It's just like this little triangle should be in the center, this top part should line up along the seam up there, and this part should line up right along this little cheek. I don't have the cheek installed yet, but you'll see why. But it should just line up right there. First I'm going to lightly dremel these just to take the edge off. I think it looks a little better if there's just a slight, not quite rounded, but not quite as square edge. I'm going to use this bit. Just kind of softens the edge a little bit. It looks less like it was just punched out. So I only want to glue one side at a time. So on the side I'm not gluing, I'm going to put some pins in it. That way the foam can't touch it and it won't glue itself down. Glue this nose down first. And slowly work my way up it. Try my best not to glue it to other things. Okay. We're just going to follow the edge. Oop. Try to stretch it to make sure it lines up with the edges. This one's getting a little unwieldy, so I'm going to put a pin here too. Stick it to that. It's going to need a little bit of stretching to get to this corner on the cheek here, but it'll reach. Do my best to line it up flush here. This down. Whoop. Okay. Take out this pin and deal with this section. Whoop. Didn't quite stick it on right. I'll try it again. So you want it to line up relatively flush here. If it doesn't line up great on the inside, that's okay, because that's going to be rounded out later. There we go. And it's slightly bigger than it needs to be, just a smidge, to make sure it fits over everything. Alright, now the other side. So there's that section. So we're going to have to clean that up with the Dremel a little bit and round all these edges over. But first, I'm going to install the cheeks. So this part on here and then the cheeks are probably the most complicated part of the whole helmet. So the cheeks are these 4 pieces. So I think first I'm going to glue the bottom little strip on here. Oh, so the reason we wait until this edge is glued on to put the cheek on, because if you don't wait, then when this is glued in, it's not flush with the edge. There's a 2mm step up to this detail piece. So you gotta wait till the detail piece is on, so then this can be glued to the edge of that. First, I'm gonna glue on this bottom piece. Then, I'm gonna do this top piece. I'm gonna start down here and get it into this corner. And just kind of roll it up and around. Might need a little bit of mushing of the foam to get it to line up on the edge. Not too much, it doesn't look like. Whoop. Alright, and then this piece. So I'm going to start up here at the edge of these two round bases. I lined those up poorly. And I'm going to roll it down and into this corner. And kind of mash that corner. And then just follow this edge down best I can. Try to mash this together. There we go. Here we go. And there you got a cheek. There's a bunch of overhang on the inside of the cheek here. You can just trim that off. This is going to need a little bit of trimming right here, because this edge is supposed to be flat, but it runs into this little doodad. So we'll cut that off, and we'll hit it with the Dremel, and it'll be good to go. Go ahead and trim up all this overlap here. Then this faceplate, since this detail piece has been glued on, I'm going to Dremel this to make sure the 2mm edge that's been glued over top matches the same bevel that I cut before. Okay. Now I gotta glue the cheekies in. I do need to put a little bit of an angle on this corner right here to make it fit a little better. It's into there. It's mostly because I can't get the Dremel into here to clean up this edge as much. You can see it's not super flush there. So I'll just do it on this. That's a little better. Yeah. That'll work. Ready to glue it in there. Okay, while that dries, I'm going to cut out some of the ear bits. And to get this earpiece to be 4 millimeters, I'll glue this 2 millimeter chunk to another 2 millimeter chunk. I'll start off by stuffing it in the corner. That way, oh. Let's try that again. I'm going to start off by stuffing it in the corner here. Gotta make sure to hold the rest of the cheek out of the way. I'm doing a poor job at lining this up right now. There we go. Then I'm just going to roll it down this. Whoop. Don't worry, the next one gonna go great. We're getting all the kinks out on this first one. Oh. And then this one's relatively easy. Just takes a lot of mushing to get it up into place. There we go. One cheek down. I just made it look harder than it is. Alright. This is the one we'll edit into the video. Let's stand up for this one. Get a good angle on it. I believe in me. Here we go. Glued weird. I'm going to try to pull it apart. There we go. Now it's going together. Here it is. Ooh, gotta mash it. Gotta mash all this upwards until these two corners here meet up. And mash this in. There. Second cheek. This does have a little bit of overhang. You can just trim that off. There's the cheeks. It is very flared out right now. If you saw the progress photos for the other one, there was like tape on the center to hold it in place. It's gonna be like that until you heat form it and glue in the visor, just because it wants the spring open. Alright, so this section here, you want to put an outward bevel on. that. This should have had an inward bevel, but you can go back and do it afterwards, even if it's already cut out. Not a big deal. I don't know if I did that in frame. I'll do it again just in case. This piece, you want an outward bevel on. And then this piece, I forgot to do it before, but needs an inward bevel. You can do it later. Just put a ruler there and cut it off. Easy peasy. And there, it lines up like that. Not a huge deal. I'm going to cut out this little dotted line. This is where the bevel starts on this earpiece. Trace that on. So both this rounded piece and this piece that goes under it on the ear need to be beveled on these edges. So for this piece, I'm just going to cut from that line down to the edge of the foam. I'll just draw a line to show you. I'm going to cut it like this. I didn't cut it perfect, so I'm going to go back and Dremel it, but that takes a lot of the material off. So I don't have a ton of foam dust everywhere. So I'm going to do the same thing on this other one. I'm going to try to do the same thing on these, just kind of go around the edge and trim off some of the material. I'm just going to clean up this outside edge here on this earpiece and then just bevel it down from this little center circle I drew here, or half circle, down to the edge. So, and afterwards it'll look like this. So these are basically already mapped out where they glue on. This 2mm layer, there's a little notch there, and that's where the earpiece fits in. So you just stick that right in there. And it's got a little taper for this, etc. So there's no guesswork in where it goes. And this just lines up with the bottom. So first I'm gonna mark it out with a marker. I know where the glue should extend to. This is the first little 4mm layer. Mark the other side as well. This just lines up in here. I kind of hook in this little, it's got a little square section there, kind of like hook that in where it goes and then glue the rest down to make sure it's in there. There, we got an ear. I'll do the same thing. Ears. This also is kind of keyed to just attach on the ear, so right on there. It ends up sitting like in the middle of this back seam there. And we'll prepare this section to be glued down. This little detail is going to go on the back. Let's start over here. The strip that goes around the back, it's kind of already keyed in to line up with the ear there. So it just hooks in like that. Wraps around the back, covering up this seam. Now this little square bit will sit in the center of this back seam. That'll continue to wrap around and line up with the other ear. So this lines up underneath that, kind of in the middle. I'm just going to eyeball it. Ooh. That'll just go straight down to the edge there. Done. Then for the detail bits in here, we have these 5 little strips that look like this. Those are going to be stacked up in here on the pattern I have on the blank inside. And showing how they're stacked up in there. So on this pattern, I'm going to place down the second one on the row. And then line up the first one with the top and glue it down on there. And then just go down the line and do the same thing. So you put the third one and then line up this first one at the top again. Glue it down, etc., until they're all glued down. And now we have a little venti looking thing. And then it gets glued in this back dongle. Like that. That makes more sense. Gonna have to. Okay, so this center strip can be glued on. And it covers up this center seam, so that's good. Oh no, got a little bit of paper towel on at home. On the pattern, I marked how long these should be. In practice, I just cut it too long and then trim it where it's supposed to go. The bits. The smallest strip, it lines up with the corner of this raised detail bit right above the eye, and it goes back right along this seam. It just follows the edge of that seam. Then the little forehead strip, it butts right up against that. And then you'll just trim that to fit around the ear. I'm gonna try to glue the top strips on. So this just lines up against that corner. And then you just follow the seam all the way back. There we go. Good to go. This forehead strip just butts right up against that piece. Same thing over here. And trim this to fit. There we go. Then the next strips They just sit right against this one. There's like a slight gap. It doesn't have to be exact, just a tiny gap in between them. There's all the strips. And I'm realizing now that I messed up the front of the face on this one. Well, let's bring the finished one over as an example. So if you look here, this front section is raised up higher than all these strips on the top. Earlier, I said this was just a 2mm piece that goes over here. Well, I forgot. It's actually a 4mm piece. And what I did was stack two 2mm pieces. I just do it all the same way as I explained. But just layer two 2mm pieces. Or do a 4mm piece. If you mess it up like I did, you can just glue another 2mm piece on here. Cut the cheek out and then glue it back in. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to remake this again. I already made one. This one's fine. But this one, not quite accurate. But also, I don't think anyone would have even known if I didn't say anything. Trimming the excess around this piece that's laid over top, and then I'm gonna dremel the rounded section on it. Bevel. Whatever. I'm gonna dremel the thing. Okay. I'm going to heat form the cheeks and face a little bit. Now we just need the horns. I already have some stacks of 10mm foam here. I think I have these from the last time I made the horns. I'm not positive though. Sometimes I just have stacks of glued together foam lying around from whatever I worked on at some point. You can either make them out of foam clay, or if you want to do the stacks of foam and dremel them down, that's what I usually prefer to do. I start by just like rough carving the shape of the horn out. There we go. Get the fingies out of the way. Don't want to clip the fingies. That's a rough horn shape. There's the horn. It's just a rough shape. You could probably use some tweaking if I was going to glue it on there. I'm not going to glue all the horns on tonight, but I just kind of cut it at an angle that's going to fit to the helmet, and then I Dremel it more so it'll fit that curve. And for the placement of the horns, the two big ones kind of go sort of, if you made like a triangle here, it would go like in the middle of that triangle for this front section of the helmet there. Then the smaller ones are slightly set back from that, and then the middle one's slightly set back from that. So it makes like this triangle shape here. So then you can see on this one, the one that's already finished, it looks like a triangle. Bloop. So that's what those look like. Here's what it looks like from the top. Maybe easier to do them in foam clay. I know a lot of people like to use foam clay for stuff like that. I just don't love waiting for foam clay to dry. So for stuff like this, I usually just stack up foam and Dremel it down. That's basically how to assemble an armor or helmet. I don't have any more of the visor material to show how I did that. I think I have like a scrap chunk somewhere. So here's the visor material I used. We just got it off Amazon. It's like a replacement face shield visor. This one's actually green. I don't know if it shows up well. But when you're wearing it, it looks dark enough that it could be black. And I just heated it up with the heat gun to get a nice curve on it, and then glued it in. I found if I didn't heat it up and like give it a pretty decent curve, it was just flattening itself out, and the front of the helmet here wasn't really holding it because it's a little bit flimsy up here. It's not gonna force the visor into place. What do I use for priming? For this I use Flex Bond, and I just stippled it on with a chip brush to get this texture. It's got like a texture in the show, and I thought that was pretty decent. And I painted it with Angelus leather paint. I used their 8K pearlescent gold, I believe is what it's called. Let me look that up real quick. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for today's stream. It was a long one. It's been going for like 5 hours now. You know, just a nice casual 5-hour stream for my first stream back. I might do another recording to show the horns, since the plan is to edit this into a video. I might try to fix the face so that it's 4mm instead of 2. I think it still looks okay without being as raised up as it's supposed to be. It still looks fine, but it's not 100% accurate. I mean, the whole helmet's not 100% accurate, but it could be more accurate. So that was the stream. Thanks to everyone who stopped by. I've been considering streaming more. If you enjoyed it, that's good. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, goodbye, everyone.